Welcome back to the French Rugby Podcast with me, Tim Groves, former Clermont and France hooker Benjamin Kayser, and ex-Bayonne, Montpellier, Cass back row Johnny Beattie. We'll have a look at the Barrages in the top 14, as well as the Basque derby to decide who'll be playing in the top 14 next season. And we'll be having a chat with a very special guest too. But how are you two doing first? Good week?
Sun is out. People are still smiling. The restrictions obviously are postponed to be lifted in England, but I don't think it's really going to change our lives dramatically, apart from international travel. I would love for it to reopen, to be able to go back to France, my parents to come and all that. But otherwise good. And I'm currently in my little student accommodation back to school.
You're in digs. You're in the halls.
Digs. What's that?
Are you in the halls of residence? Where are you, Benji?
Oh, mate, the Oxford halls are still Oxford, right?
So
I was going to say, of course
they still look good, I'm telling you. But no, it's cool. And I met up with, there's a varsity match that's just around the corner. I met up with, there's some US internationals that are joining because they're going to study here. And I met up last night with Andrew Duratalo, who's an absolutely lovely guy, who's an Olympian for the US Sevens team. And obviously Fijian born, but then raised in the States, and currently playing in Seattle.
The Seawolves,
yeah. And he will be part of the varsity match team for the Blues, hopefully on the 4th of July in Welfare Road.
Wow. And Johnny, good week?
It has been absolutely roasting in France. It got up to about 36. So for pasty Scotsman, that was quite uncomfortable. So I managed to escape the southwest. I got up to Paris, so covered both the Barrage games. More importantly, just being in Paris and restaurants being open, being able to sit and have a beer in a restaurant, have it poured, a proper pint, is just an absolute game changer mentally. So that was really cool. Up in Paris, I hired myself a little bike, went for a whistle-stop tour of the Eiffel Tower and a few different sites in Paris like a tourist, which was good crack, and then did the Barrage games, which we'll get onto for Canal Plus and for Premier Sports, and sat and watched Biarritz Bayonne, which was probably one of the best games of rugby I've ever watched. So no, great weekend without any kids. It was kid-free. It was just me in Paris. It was wonderful, long lies, and then got back down on Monday. It was our biggest 5th birthday, so celebrated that in the swimming pool with the family and a bit of birthday cake. So no, it's been good crack, a good weekend.
Let's chat about that Biarritz Bayonne game then, Johnny, because you said you watched it in a bar in Paris, and epic, wasn't it?
Absolutely epic. Gut-wrenching to watch from a Bayonne perspective, but look, having fans in the stadium, and then the intensity, seeing how much it meant to not only the players, but the people in the build-up around here during the week. Drumming around Bayonne, Biarritz, generating support, going around, hanging around flyers, hanging out flags. The place was absolutely buzzing. And I think all of it was just unleashed at Stade Aguilera in Biarritz at the weekend. It was just an absolutely insane game of rugby in terms of the intensity, the desire, teams fronting up. You sort of felt Bayonne didn't want to lose, and Biarritz just wanted to bludgeon them to death. It was 3-3 after 80 minutes. But again, they just scrapped for every single inch. We'll get on with our guest to how it ended. But now historically, when you look back at the images and how it finished with Steffon Armitage knocking over that kick to win it for Biarritz, you just don't get bigger. And again, heartbreak for Bayonne, who have had this project of reconstructing the club. Now relegated, they're probably going to lose all of their best players, and you go back to square one, which is extremely hard for Bayonne. But look, in terms of Biarritz, the journey they've been on, the way they played at the weekend, key players standing up, they were phenomenal. And the history of the club, they haven't been in the top 14 for 7-8 years. So to get back to that level with Steffon Armitage, with Francis Sailly, with these guys leading a bunch of young, keen, hungry French kids coming through the academy that are just outstanding, it was one hell of a game of rugby.
And Benji, we will get on to talking about more of the positives in a minute. But Johnny mentioned the fans. There's been a bit of controversy, isn't there?
Well, I don't know how it's possible, but it didn't look like there was 5,000 people. Obviously, I can't count, and that's the whole thing behind it, is that they got
Neither can
angry
they.
because they said there was a lot more than 5,000. The fans invaded the pitch at the
It was
end, which
full.
obviously isn't really great in terms of social distancing. People were going mental. Apparently, allegedly, there wasn't enough checks, and some people managed to sneak in ticketless towards the end. I don't know. All I know is that I don't think there was anything majorly illegal that was done there. And obviously, in the heat of the moment, it's impossible to then control 5,000 people in the stand, not to run on the pitch after so much time, waiting, unless you have an army of security guards. It's just obviously mission impossible. Again, it got to the point where I think, what is it, the sort of the local government body of the département started saying they're going to raise an investigation. I think that's something that should be dealt with internally instead of announcing it in the media. Send a letter to Biarritz president and say, listen, we're going to triple check things here, because you just can't mess around. And it's true that it doesn't give out a fantastic image. Everybody's making sacrifices at the moment. We all need to be careful. Again, even if there was a couple of hundred people extra, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying it shouldn't be front and center of the conclusion of this game. There's a much bigger picture. There's also, how do you measure the happiness that it gave to the people that were there, right? So as long as they were happy, as long as they weren't being foolish, as long as they didn't bluntly cheat, I'm okay with it.
I wonder what percentage it added, though, to the performance of Biarritz. So having X number plus fans than they should have, and that drive and that noise and that kicker, how much it would help. And normally you would think a lot, substantially, massive, like that wall of noise can be a real motivator. My question was going to be, Benji, in terms of trouble that Biarritz could get into, what does that look like? They can't have the promotion taken away, because it's not the league that's against them, it's a government thing. So is it going to be a heavy financial penalty, or is it going to be, okay, next season we're not going to allow you to have home fans in your stadium for the first 5 games, or what could it look like potentially?
I have no idea. For one, they need to prove, because this is all allegedly. So I don't know how they can prove it. Listen, if they show them that they sold 5,000 tickets, there's no way that people can count on image, right? So there's an easy way. You need to prove them that they're guilty before you assume of everything. I think it's what you said. It's the worst case scenario. They'll get a financial penalty, which is never nice, and they need the money at the moment. And potentially, maybe, the beginning of top 14 next year might be penalized, and the first home game will have to be a reclos with no fans. That's potentially the worst thing that can happen. I think we're not talking about canceling the relegation. I think it's just about leading by example. These clubs need to show that they're respecting the rules, because everybody else is making mistakes, and you can't have double standards. But listen, the Roland Garros final, when I hear that there was basically because there's a curfew at 11 p.m. in France at the moment, unless you have a special accreditation or whatever, a special permission from the government because you're there for work or for a special reason or something. Like the Castres, game, the last game against Toulon, where there was 1,000 people or 500 people in the stands, and they all said that they were working. Mate, they were the crazy guys with the tambourines and their face painted and all that. So if that was a corporate event, my ass is chicken. And so they did it that way. So I think for Biarritz, it's pretty much the same thing. I can't be asked for these things. I think it's a bit, again, that shouldn't be in media for me. Just deal with it. Do an investigation. Go and see well, you can't go to Biarritz. He'll be in Ibiza in a couple of minutes. But still, just like deal with it internally.
Your ass is chicken. That's all I heard. Mate, the other image that came up from the weekend, did you see Teddy Thomas at the game?
Yeah.
It's like the photo of Teddy Thomas sat in the stand without mask amongst 30 other people without mask. I'm like, mate, could you imagine if he picks something up and takes it back to Racing and they can't play whatever their semi or their final because he's not watching a game? It's just bonkers. Like, you're thinking, why? Just do the simple thing and stick a mask on. I couldn't believe when I saw that come through. Could you imagine Jackie Lorenzetti goes back up to Racing on a plane journey again, obviously, because you have to travel with loads of other people, and he's picked something up? That would be absolutely mental. And then his ass would be chicken as well, 100%.
And Benji, on to the positive. For anyone who hasn't seen the game, the difference was one kick. Went to a penalty shootout. Steffon Armitage put Biarritz into the top 14. But the game itself, your take on it, because there was obviously nothing between them, was there?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think we're going to speak a lot about it, obviously, because it's a very intense moment and we've got a special, very cool guest who's doing us an honor. But it was just absolutely huge amount of heart and just sheer determination to go minute after minute. I honestly, I felt I was tired with them. I felt that I was out of breath with them. And those long pick and goes, when you know somebody's going to break, something's going to happen. But those sequences happens, I don't know, 12 or 15 times. There was a few key moments from the 70th to the 80th moment where you thought Bayonne going to snatch it, Biarritz are going to snatch it. And then there's the overtime and it's all getting the same thing. And then you see the penalty shootout coming in. So it was just an extraordinary moment of rugby where you felt that people desperately want. These are the emotions that we love about rugby and sport in general. It's untouchable, unmeasurable. But when your brain decides collectively to do something extraordinary together, sometimes nothing can stop you. And in rugby, there seems to be, you always say you get the lucky bounce, you get the lucky penalty, you get the lucky thing. But if you looked at, whenever there was a ball on the floor, there was a Biarritz guy who would jump on it. When there was a tackle to be done on the ankles, it was a Biarritz guy who was there. Yes, it was clumsy. Yes, it was. There was 700 probably driving balls on that game. There wasn't a lot of rugby actually played, and they were hanging on by a thread for a long, long time. But the amount of moments where you're like, oh, this time they're gonna concede a try for sure, and then there's some guy rips it out, and then they're back. There's a series of pick and go. You're like, this time they're definitely going to concede something. And then Steffon Armitage pulls the one steal 50 centimeters from his line and then steals that ball there. They're back. It was just a roller coaster of emotion that was extraordinary. Really, really heartwarming. Whether you like Biarritz, Bayonne, whoever you support, it was just a fantastic display of what rugby can be when it's played with just a huge heart.
Let's have a look at the barrage now then in the top 14. And you guys were worried for Stade Francais against Racing when we spoke about it last week, and they were completely outplayed, weren't they?
Yeah, so funny. There was a cute story in it. I actually spoke to him yesterday for something else, but I spoke to Gaël Ficou, who was a bit under pressure because obviously, he left Stade Francais. I think Stade Francais were trying to get rid of him in the summer. I think that's basically what I'm gathering, because of salary cap reasons and because they weren't particularly happy with his ratio of money investment and performance on the pitch. That's their idea, their season. I think he's a phenomenal player and he's a great bloke. And so when he heard that, he was like, well, if you don't want me to stay next year, I might as well leave now, right? And Racing basically offered him a hand, and Gaël Ficou gets along really well with Yannick Nyonga, who we had on the show and who's director of rugby there, or director of operations, whatever you want to call it. And so he went. But obviously then playing them in the Barrages, because nobody saw Stade Francais come back, but fair play to them, they did, by winning 6 or 7 games in a row or something like that. And so the last team that he wanted to have in front of him was probably Stade. And I thought he played individually incredibly well. And I adored his attitude at the end, where he could tell he was genuinely happy, but he didn't smile once. He just went to shake everybody's hand. Everybody was jumping. And you could tell he just wanted to go back to the changing room and let all that pressure off his shoulders and finally breathe. And that's what he said. He said, no, there was no way in the world. He said, don't get me wrong, I wanted to win that one bad. He was really, really motivated. But there was also a sense of he's genuinely very happy about his time in Stade Francais. He's made some really good mates. He's got some, when you go through tough moments, you create sort of a special bond with guys. So he didn't want to joke and mess that up, and they did really well. But to talk about the game, Stade Francais got just absolutely blown away in the first half. There was only one team on the pitch, which was Racing. They were outpacing them, out-muscling them. But then Stade Francais, when they play, they still have some hard hitters. I mean, Kremer, the Argentinian guy who came on, he is a monster of a man. Latou played well, and they just went at it. Waisea, the Fijian center, who's a bit of a freak when he's on it. And they just then came back and gradually just crawled a couple of tries and just tried to fight back. And Racing were basically dominated the whole second half, but had too much of a lead. And so the better team went through.
But to put that into context, it was 35-0 at halftime, I think. The game was gone. So Travers was taking people off, preserving people for the semi-final. Almost watching that first half, I got the impression that Stade Francais, their final was that win at Bayonne last weekend. Finishing in the top 6, securing European rugby. I think that was their final. And then how they rocked up and how they approached the game the first half, mate, they were nowhere near, like not at the races at all. Defense was shocking. Their discipline, mate, they couldn't get into the game because they kept giving away penalties. I think they gave away 12 penalties in the first half. Normally, any team tries to keep it under 10 over 80 minutes. I think they had a yellow card after the 6th penalty, and they just kept digging themselves a grave. And it was easy for Racing on that pitch with the talent they have. It was way too easy. So look, it almost, like we were doing in commentary, it was almost a humiliation. The first half was a humiliation for Stade Francais, and the second half was just purely saving face. And I think that's what they did. They don't go on holidays completely humiliated, but that first half was bad, and the game was gone, and it was clear. So look, almost easy, too easy for Racing. Again, we talked about the context of the Basque derby, but the Parisian derby was way too easy, way too easy for Racing, and they march on to semi-finals. A huge game for them coming up too.
And we did say last week as well, it was always going to be an uphill battle for Clermont at Bordeaux, Benji. But did they play to the standard that you would expect?
Yeah, honestly, they did. They played really well. I was really happy for them. They played with some proper determination. It was a very, very physical game. They're not there to joke around. You always have to put things in consideration that Sita Timani went back to Australia for personal reasons. He's actually picked for the Wallabies, which is playing against France in the summer, which is a cool story. But then you one man down, and then his little brother Seva Maina, who is a monster and very important for Clermont, is out for the rest of the season. So no, they're really hanging on by a thread a little bit. But it was obviously the last game of Franck Azema. You know, there's a lot of emotions in there, and things are really important. I really thought they played well. I really thought they gave they gave Bordeaux proper run for their money. They went absolutely full tilt at it. But in those really tight games, there's a moment where Arthur Ituria is about to score a try, and obviously he gets it whacked under his arms in the end zone and can't convert. And then 2 penalties later, they're 5 meters out of their line, overthrow, pick up by Bordeaux, score. So, you know, it's one of those, it's almost 14 points, basically. You should have put 7, and then you concede 7, and that was it. And that was the decider. So, and after that, it's like 3 points here, 3 points there, you know, each team going at it. But le mal était fait, the harm was done. And but I was really proud of them. I thought they played really well. There's still some incredible talent in there. Bit of an emotional moment for Franck, and I had some few texts from the boys where it's a proper chapter that's closed.
And the interesting thing for Bordeaux is that this season they haven't beaten Toulouse. They've lost 3 times. They've lost home and away, and they lost their Champions Cup where their prep was ruined. So they've got another step. It's massive that they've just got this far. They're in a semi. But Christophe has talked about how they have to find a solution, and they have to find something different to beat Toulouse because they haven't managed it this season. So huge game for them. And also just the game in generally, it wasn't the best standard. I think it was like 36 degrees in Bordeaux, but extreme humidity. So the ball was covered in sweat, loads of knock-ons, loads of unforced errors. It wasn't pretty to watch. But then I think Bordeaux of old would have lost that game, and they would have been steamrolled by Clermont. But the fact that they've taken a few more steps, they're building nicely, team spirit kind of shone through, and also they had a few guys that were just enormous, like Walkie line out time, Jalibert off the tee, Luku, the way he kicked from deep and gave his side some territory and got his team out of jail a couple of times. Big Ben Tamifuna, when he came on, the turnovers he came up with, like just freakish in the jackal area. And Remy Lamarat, my old mate from Cast, who ball of physicality, was like a human pinball, just absolutely everywhere, smashing his body to bits. So it's massive for the club. We've spoken to a couple of boys there. They're on this journey. It's fantastic, but they have to find something different this week. They haven't beaten Toulouse at all this year. They haven't even come close, really. So to take another step forward and get into a final, they have to find an extra gear.
Well, we can have a chat now with a hero from Saturday and a man who will surely never, ever have to buy a drink in Biarritz ever again. Steffon Armitage joins us. How are you, Steffon?
Not too bad. Thank you very much for having me again.
Honestly, not too bad.
I've been better.
Mate, talk us through it. Probably one of the most famous victories we'll ever see in French rugby. What's the party been like? Because that was some game. Talk us through the aftermath.
I still don't think it's actually kicked in properly, to be honest. Like just a whole day. How it, like, bit by bit, trying to break it down, like how it all went. And then being involved in a match with 3-3 after 80 minutes. I've never been, like, I've seen it on like TV, you know, back in the days and stuff like that. But to be involved in one of those kind of games, it's like, it's all bizarre. Do you know what I mean? It's like bizarre. And then after the last kick, I don't really remember anything, because as soon as I turned around, like, everyone was on top. Like, it's kind of hard to breathe. You know, just trying to get away, and all I wanted to do was just to say hello to my wife who was in the stand. But you couldn't really do that. It was just, everything was just a massive blur. But all the fans and stuff has been awesome. Do you know what I mean? Like, we get messages non-stop. My phone just keeps going off, and just to see the town as well, like Biarritz. I've never seen it. I've been here for a year and a half now, and I've never seen Biarritz like this before with all the fans. And I still had a few, like, free drinks yesterday, which was quite cool. It's always good. It's always better when it's free. But yeah, it's been awesome at the moment. And as I said before, I don't think it's probably kicked in properly yet. Maybe when I get back from Ibiza, might have done by then.
You said
Ibiza.
It's what's happening?
Let us in. What's happening? Where are you going this afternoon?
Our president thought it'd be a nice trip for the boys. Give us a little carrot if we win. We're going to Ibiza. So got a phone call yesterday morning saying, "Oh, we've got 2 flights. We can leave tomorrow morning or Wednesday morning. Come back Friday, Saturday. Here's 2 hotels. Pick one." I was like, "Oh, okay, this is happening." And as I said before, it's like one of those. It's that moment. Wow, hold on. I've been married for 10 years. Ibiza, tell the boys first, or tell the missus. Ooh. It took me a few minutes to tell my missus. I chose the boys first, sent them all a message quickly saying who's in. And then obviously missus found out, and she was okay. She was like, we deserve to how long the season's been and how things have been going, just to go have a few days. And then apparently, like, I got promised I'm not going to drink after I get back.
So you're never going to hold that promise, mate. There's no chance.
No.
So you're in, Steffon. Did any of the boys reply and say no thanks?
Oh, just only a couple of boys, but everyone else was straight. It was just like, you know, one of those things. Just I started pinging, their phone just started like pinging, just non-stop thing. I think there's only like 2 or 3 people not going. I think it's a way for everyone just to say, because obviously we've got a few guys leaving as well, so it's a good send off for those boys. And yeah, I think we deserved. I think we deserve a little breakaway.
You 100,000% deserve it, to be fair. Like, and obviously I was in the receiving ends, but when you guys won with Toulon, there was always a bit of jealousy, a bit of this. This win, I think, may put a smile on everybody's faces. Everybody wasn't cheering particularly against Bayonne, but it's just that, you know, the underdog, you guys put your absolute bodies on the line for the whole 100 minutes or whatever of that game. But I swear to you, I saw you lining up on that last little kick, and I was thrown back to 2009. So the Leicester-Cardiff semi-final Champions Cup, where there goes to penalty shootout. I didn't kick, obviously, hallelujah. But Jordan Crane kicks it and nails it. And a lot of guys miss, you know, you don't know what's going on. And then I tell you the story that on the Monday, they then they lined everybody up who would have been after Jordy Crane. And it was me, Julian White, whatever. And I whacked it as hard as I can, mate. I didn't even come close to the post. I think I heard the corner post. Basically, that's what I hit. And when I saw you lining up, you didn't kick too. You went pretty softly, didn't you? Yeah. You tried to do something gentle and smart, and I was like, he's nailed it.
Arrest it.
Mate, that's balls of steel that will earn you a trip to Ibiza, yes. Memories for a lifetime, 1,000 well-deserved beers over the summer, and I'm pretty sure around every other week you'll get something, just people saying thank you. But as a rugby fan, thank you for the emotions, because I think we've been loving this, and we've been waiting so long to see some genuine heart. I mean, that turnover at the 78th minute, you're massively on the side, okay, but who cares? You get it. And you deliver and you turn it over. It's just those moments you're going to break, and then they're back, you know, and it's just pure grit and heart and heart and heart. It was brilliant to see. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it was, because we thought, like, I thought they were going to go for a drop goal. They were actually planning to go for a drop goal.
Yeah. And
I don't know why they didn't take it, but I think it's one of those, like, you could see how the game was going. They tried to kick into touch. They said, "Oh, we can bully them in the drives," but like up the field, like from 50, they bullied us a little bit in the drives. Like they got a little bit of a headway sometimes, like 10, 15 meters. But on our try line, when it's literally like in our minds, like literally we just have to go in there, nothing to lose, just literally smash them. Do you know what I mean? And they did it 3 times in a row, and we stopped it soon. And then they started going for points, and that's when I knew like up front that we had them, and I knew all we had to just keep playing our rugby, and then something will happen, someone's going to break, and obviously no one broke. It just stayed the same way for the whole way. But it's true, just one of those. I'm just so proud of the boys because for once, like we went out there and for the whole 80 minutes or whole 100 minutes, literally the boys were putting their body on the line.
Oh man!
I mean, and we haven't
talk
done that.
Talk to me about that Dyer guy. Is he Fijian?
I mean, well, he's
Mate, wow, he had a big game.
Mate, he's
He
awesome.
just came back on and he was just carried like an animal.
Yeah,
he's not really a lock, is he? I think he could play 6 probably or 8 or something.
Yeah. So that's when he first came. So we were playing in the back row together. So, and then obviously we had a few injuries, like a few concussion with Andy Evan being out, breaking his foot. So we literally had no one, and he was like, "Yeah, well, no, he's heavy enough." So they were like, "Okay, let's stick him in there." And literally, he's been there from whenever he started. He's played every single game in second row. But even though we've got like a full, everyone's back now for second row, they still kept him in there. But he's unbelievable. Like I mean, it's always good to have someone like that as well, who's got kind of like the similar kind of play as me, which is always good to have. You know, he's really good over the ball carrying, and he's there when you need him. Those big moments. You know, he had a few steals on the weekend. Those big moments, he's there, and I think he's going to do good for Fiji this week. I think they're playing New Zealand this weekend. I think so. He's off there. He was on the flight the morning after, so he hasn't done anything with us yet.
Oof, he was a monster. And you look through the team, like there's some real quality. See, they've obviously got yourself, France Saili, Henry Spate, Dyer, some decent young, like Ali Watt I played with the second row, again, carried like a monster. Doesn't technically like set the world alight, but just trucks up like guts. Obviously now, Steph, there's a massive step up. You're going to go to top 14, and notoriously, it's incredibly hard for anybody to stay up, especially that last game. You've got 3 weeks to do recruitment. So how big a job is it going to be for Matt Clarkin, Jean-Baptiste Aldiger, these guys to get recruitment in and try and bolster the squad for next season already?
It's massive. I think they should have started. They should have started anyway. Like, listen, I truly believed, you know, things happen for a reason. So the weekend we lost to Perpignan in finals it was just a stepping stone to say we've still got another game, a bigger game to play. And so happens it was Bayonne. So I truly believed that we were going to go up to 14, and that's what my goal was, coming to Biarritz in the first place. And I told everyone the whole season. There's loads of people who doubted us, who said things like, "Oh yeah, we're not good enough to be there." I said, "You know what? Let people talk. I'm going to show them. My boys. We're going to show them the difference." And I think they should have been looking. They should have had people ready, like if we go up, if we don't go up. So those people should be in the line already. So I'm hoping that's what he's done. Like, if you're a smart person, you would have that set up already. So I know they're on it. They're on it straight away. So we need a few players, and then we just need to keep the boys. Some of the boys, we've got quite a lot of young talents like Lucas Perez Blanc.
He's awesome.
He's
real good.
I told him already he will be in a French team eventually. You just gotta keep your head down, keep doing what you're doing, and just evolve, because now he's on the big stage now, and it's time for him to shine. But not just him. Another one, Mathieu, again, he didn't play. He's another back row. So we've actually got a lot of young players, and I think it'll do them good to experience the top 14, and obviously having other players come in who could help as well to give us more than what we've got at the moment.
And you mentioned top 14 was always the goal for you, Steffon, but there was pressure, wasn't there? I remember it's been a long season, but we spoke to you at the start of it, and you were telling us how the owner very much said it's promotion or bust. That's what you're here for.
Pretty much, yeah. And I think he kept. I think that's really what he wanted. Obviously, like with everything's going on in this club and stuff, will move into Lille or San Sebastian or Monaco. You know, there's been a lot of things going on, and one of the main things what he told me was like, yeah, it's pretty much like you've promised me something. It's a top 4 team, so it's either that or nothing. I was like, okay, like listen, I always reach for the stars every time. Do you mean like I will always you tell me like you get 100, I'm like I want 105, so I'll always want more. So my mind, like I knew we were going to go up, so I had faith in the boys and I had faith in everyone, so it worked out.
You maybe didn't quite plan it the way it did work out, but you delivered.
Yeah, I still can't
right, so mate, talking 105, Steph.
Yeah.
Obviously, Benji's talked about that running order for when penalty kicks get announced.
Yeah.
But you went 6th. You were kicking against the winger, right?
Yeah. I was meant to be number 5.
So because Ali Watt, I've played with Ali Watt. He's a really good kicker as well, the second row. But like, so it's rare that your forwards jump ahead of your backs. So how did that? How did you end up coming? Like, is it something you've practiced? Something that you were just wanted to step up and lead? Like, how did that happen?
Johnny, you know this. All back rows, we want to be kicked. we kick 1,000 kicks during the season just for this moment. Nah, it was like Sean came over. Was like, who's kicking? So it was like, obviously like James Hart was the first, and then I think Sean he knew we were going back. We were going into the penalty shootout when he came there because he took Henry Spaeth off to bring on a scrum half back on a wing. Mm-hmm. Obviously, because he's one of the kickers, and they got to 3, and everyone was like, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely 4. I'm definitely 5.
Back yourself.
Love it. Francis, so we were like this, and me and Francis looked at each other, and he was like, "No, I've got this. Let me take 5." I was like, "Are you sure?" Because I've got this. I'm ready. And he was like, "No, just I've got this." I was like, "Okay, you better get it." We just stood there. It's just one of these. So we're both there, me and him, and we're trying to just test out tees, which one to take and stuff like that. So it's like I had a smaller one. Francis, when he kicked his, and I was like, that's a nice one. This one worked. I took the other one away, took that one. It was like one of those. I was just, listen. And as I told everyone like beforehand, I was like, listen, guys, it doesn't matter what happens now. Like, win or lose, it's a really, really sad way to, like, someone's going to miss. Do you know what I mean? Someone's going to miss and someone's going to feel like shit for a long time. So no matter what happens, boys, I love you guys, and that's it. Just go out there and just hit it. Just hit the ball. Don't think about it, because we're all winners. Like, no, there's no losers. There's no losers today. Obviously, Bayonne, they've gone down, but listen, it could happen. It could have gone both ways, and we had the chance. We got lucky, and yeah.
Did you have the feeling, Steph, that you kind of deserved to win it in regular time?
Yeah.
Because watching the game, that is one of the, again, not for technical reasons, but it's one of the most intense, and I would say not enjoyable, one of the best games of rugby from intensity that I've ever watched. I was sitting in Paris with a beer in the bar by myself watching it, and my stomach was in absolute knots for everybody, for both sides. I've got mates, I've played for Bayonne, know you guys really well, know half the team. But in that moment, and I think now watching it back when you see the replays, it's probably going to be one of the most historic and iconic moments in top 14 history. Like, there are not many games where you see that much turmoil. There's one other penalty shootout that we've seen, and it was Leicester against Cardiff. When I think I'd have been 20 years old, Benji, you'd have been the same age, you were playing. But it's just ridiculous. And so now, having captained the side this year, having stepped up to win a Basque derby in itself, which is phenomenal, and also to get Biarritz back into top 14, relegate Bayonne, and knock over the winning kick. Like, how do you sum that all up? It's absolutely freakish.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like literally, I don't know. It still hasn't kicked in. So I think maybe it might be me because I'm still a little bit drunk right now. But we'll have to have another conversation probably after when I'm like a little bit sober. Nah, it's the only reason we're here because of all the boys we've got. I mean, I've got like a awesome bunch of boys, and for me, that last bit, I mean, it was kind of a way like I wanted to put myself in that situation because I felt like most of those boys, they've still got their whole careers. Quite a lot of them's got their whole careers ahead of them. Do you know what I mean? And like for me, it's like coming to the end, coming near the end. And I rather it was me that missed than any other of my teammates. And that's the thing. Because I think everyone deserves a chance to play in the top 14, and everyone deserved that chance. So, and obviously Biarritz have been waiting 8 years for this as well. So it was. Do you know what I mean? It's still like I'm still trying to get that around my head. Like it's been 8 years that this club, a club that I used to watch when I was younger. Do you know what I mean? I used to support Biarritz. I had like a Biarritz shirt when I was younger, and to think that they haven't been in top 14 for that long, it's that bit's kicked in. But yeah, it's just all weird.
Benji's
Do you want to crack on? Do you want to crack on, Johnny?
I want to ask you really quickly. You mentioned that moment and stepping up, and saying you sort of at the not the twilight, but in the most of your career has come before already. Have you then got a little thought for Emerick Luke? You obviously missed the kick for Bayonne, young kid, but he's probably been the best player. I'm not sure if you watched many of Bayonne's games this year. He's been probably their best player.
Yeah.
Like, what would you be saying to him now? Again, in your role as captain, sort of father figure in the group. Obviously, you stepped up and took that kick. He was really unfortunate to miss, but he's been phenomenal. Like, have you got any words that you want to pass on to him?
He showed. I want to say straight up. This was for him as well. Like he stepped up. He showed the guts to come up, and that shows how much of a big player he is. Like in those such situations, it's tough, but I'm guarantee you probably there was not that many people who actually put their hand up to actually take the kick. I mean, because we got in that situation with the fifth kick, the sixth kick for them. I mean, it's a do or die. I mean, but he stuck up his hand. So all my thing is he's got a massive future ahead of him, and like literally for the season that he's actually accomplished this season, he should hold his head high. There's nothing to be sad about, and I don't think anyone will fucking blame him for missing that kick. You know, it's a tough time. So keep his head up, and he will bounce back. Prove people wrong next year. You know, life goes on. Things happen, but in your career, you're gonna have lows. And you're gonna have big highs, and I do believe he's gonna have some big highs because I've seen already that quite a lot of team want to sign him in the top 14 already. So hey, that shows you something. I mean, that's nothing. Forget it. It'll be hard to forget to start off with, but hey, that's how you become a good rugby player. How you become a good person is to put things behind it and then move on.
And we'll let you go soon, Steffon, because you've got a flight to catch. But just going back to the whirlwind of the past couple of days, you obviously got that phone call yesterday that said you were going to Ibiza, and at the end of a long day, you had to go for a COVID test.
Yes, delightful. Can't remember it. But I'm more negative though. I'm more good.
Good. That would be a shame if that put paid to it.
Flying. Mate, another quick one. How good was it to have all those fans in the stadium? Because I'm not sure you could have asked. There was only 5,000, not one more. That's what we've heard is the official line. But how good was it? Like the noise that came, it was like a wall of noise. You could feel it. How good was it to have that pumping behind you, to have fans back in the stadium and energized? Because it was such an emotional performance. It must have been insane.
I think that's it. It's absolutely amazing, and that shows like no one wanted to give up. Like for the whole 100 minutes, everyone was just giving everything. Just to have those guys in the head of the supporters cheer you on, that gives you. And I've said this before. Like we've always been in a situation where we've always only played rugby probably 70%, because the other 30% is where we just, do you know what I mean, where we just end up losing it. And it's always like the second half where we just underperform for some reason. But having the supporters back cheering you on and stuff, that gives you that 30% that you're missing. Do you know what I mean? Just to have them there cheering you on, like, doesn't matter who. It didn't matter. I didn't matter which side they were cheering for. It's just the pure fact there was 5,000 people in the stands, and they were just cheering because, like, whether they're having fun or just I don't know. It's just I just thought it was amazing, and it's like I can't wait for it to actually be fully back open, where we can have a full, like, proper full stadium.
We can have more than 5,000.
How good is it to see that picture of the president where he's in the middle of the pitch where everybody's on around and he doesn't have a mask and he's screaming like this, and the quote is like, "No, it was only 5,000 people. We respected absolutely everything." Where you see some people have got masks and he's there in the middle like cheering on with everyone. I was like, okay, you're doomed. You're doomed. Just skip on next week. That's why you guys are going to Ibiza. I just want to get out of France, get out of from the heat a little bit.
Listen, we'll deal with tomorrow.
Exactly.
And that's what I think. That's what his thing was, and I think like he couldn't hold it back. He was crying. Yeah, I think he went through every single emotions, I reckon. But hey, I haven't spoken to him properly yet, other than talking about Ibiza. So I'm sure we're gonna have a chat. This I might just not talk to him for a couple of days. It might be best. It might be best I stay away from him, to be honest.
Well, you've made him and the whole of Biarritz very happy, Steffon. So congratulations and have a massive few days in Ibiza.
Thank you very much. I'll send you guys some videos from Ibiza. Don't worry.
Yes,
hell yeah.
Enjoy, mate. Cheers, Steph.
Enjoy, bud. Well deserved.
Brilliant of Steffon to come on in the midst of all that, off to Ibiza in an hour.
It's genuinely a legendary rugby moment that happened. He was so instrumental. I mean, again, I love Biarritz and Côte Basque as a region. I had no allegiance to either team, but you just saw a red and white sort of team that were ready to give absolutely everything. Bayonne repeatedly making mistakes, and like he said, the big players shining and the big players coming. I absolutely adore. I wish I would have been a little mouse and to listen to that little chat that he described to us just before the penalty shootout. That's the big guys that step up in those moments. You know, how important is it for all those guys that are going to kick just after, who their heart is probably like bouncing off their chest, and you hear Steffon Armitage, "Boys, I love you. There's no losers here. Whatever happens, we're gonna go get this together." You know, that's the real, true, in the midst of things, real leadership, and I'm super impressed by it. And then he only had the nuts of steel to then convert and back his words with action, and that's legendary status. And I really do think he's gonna realize in the next couple of weeks, months, years, whenever he packs it, hangs up the boots, he's gonna remember England. Obviously, he's gonna remember London Irish. He's gonna remember Toulon for sure. He'll still remember that day he pretty much carried, not single-handedly, but almost single-handedly carried the leadership of a team to one of the biggest drama upsets, whatever, game that the second division of professional France rugby has ever seen. And I think he'll be mega proud about what he's done.
And I think if you're not from this area, or you've never played for either of the sides, or even if you're out from outside France, you don't really understand how the magnitude of that game, how big the Basque derby is in itself, even without the context of having that session match. It's the biggest game for both clubs. Like historically, each president will send, I think, 1,000 tickets to the opposition president, and they each year refuse them. They're like, "We will not set foot in Bayonne. No, we will not set foot in Biarritz." They absolutely hate each other. So for Steph to step up in those moments, lead the way he did, play the way he played, and don't get me wrong, having played for Bayonne, Biarritz were better over the 80 minutes, over the 100 minutes in terms of what they produced on the field, the desire, the hunger, the drive. And again, they were massively driven by that home support. I think that's why an away team has never won that game. In the 3 or 4, Benji, I think this is the 4th one, the away side from the top 14 has never won. And they just didn't have the solutions. But just the magnitude of that game, Basque derby, for Biarritz to have relegated Bayonne in that fashion, with the drama that we watched unfold and the intensity, was unbelievable. It was one of the most important games of rugby I think I've watched in France over the past 10 years. It was just insane. So look, and you mentioned that he stepped up the way he played. Dyer, Saili, Gav Stark, young winger from Kiwi winger. Just sensational, like so good. And clearly they have the level to go up and play in top 14. They've also got a lot of young French kids that have played in the top 14 before. Ilian Parot, the 10 that came off, Ali Watt, Evan Olmsted, the Canadian. They've got some depth, but they're going to have to add. Like the next 3-4 weeks is absolutely critical for their chance of survival. Because we've seen teams that have gone up too soon and it's been extremely hard. I think Perpignan already, but Biarritz, like that was absolutely fueled on emotion, but you cannot do that for the duration of a top 14 season. So they're going to have to add some quality, but just what a game. What a game. It was just
the game,
ridiculous.
The game's magnitude is also down to the context. Like you said, you explained the Basque derby for sure. That will always be huge. Then you tip that with a little bit of icing to say that it's accession or promotion to top 14 that's down the line after 80 minutes, not just regional pride. Okay. And then you need to realize how much of a roller coaster of a season has been for Biarritz. I mean, when did we ever hear a club saying, listen, the town hall does not want to back us. We're going to move to Lille. They're going to move the club. So imagine if you're the president, Jean-Baptiste Aldiger, and then next week you're going to meet up with the mayor. You've got a big old fat smile on your face and be like, right, you didn't want to back us. Now we actually converted on the sporting side. Now you need to step up, right?
Come on, help us.
But it's going to take a while. There's still a massive project behind it. I mean, apparently the facilities are, really, really out of date. And then the project was on the Bayonne side. So it's constantly that race of between, who's going to have the pride of just more than a game, who's going to be the king of the area. So it's to be able to balance that, the uncertainty, what's going on in Biarritz in the next couple of seasons, the uncertainty of finances, the uncertainty due to pandemic, the uncertainty due to the fact that Bayonne seemed to have a stronger project and still they deliver over 100 minutes. So that is massive.
Benji, the gut feel I get from talking to you is that you think the two clubs should fuse. Would that be right?
Yeah, 100%. So I think he would have hated me for saying that because it's too sore, too near. Listen, for me, Pays Basque, La Côte Basque, whatever, the Southwest is one of the most beautiful regions in France. All right, it's an absolutely stunning place. 40 minutes from Spain, you have the mountains, you have the Atlantic, you're not far from Toulouse, whatever. They absolutely adore their rugby, and they are super proud of the Basque heritage. Whether you believe in it, whether you're a real Basque or not, there's a special language, there's special songs, there's special delicacies or whatever you want to call them. There's a special way of life, and they're very, very proud about it. But you have those two teams that are 5 miles or 3 miles next to each other.
4 kilometers
Richmond
between
and
them.
London. They touch each other. It's the same thing. It's the same people. Most Bayonne players live in Biarritz and vice versa. And I mean, look, they hate each other. And I was listening to Emmanuel Arinorduki, the former number 8 for Biarritz, who was saying that whenever they go to the Fête de Bayonne, that everybody dresses in white and red, right? That's the traditional sort of way of dressing up, and even the Bayonne fans will do it. They don't care. They will still party together. They're still very, very proud. So I'm just thinking, it's about time that they put their hands together and be like, right, let's create a Basque identity. Let's have this one club in top 14, still have all the youngsters in the academy and the under 18s or 20s or whatever you want to still play for Bayonne and for Biarritz, don't get me wrong, but have one professional entity that can be able to combine both sponsors, be able to combine both facilities, both projects, and finally shoot together. I mean, if you have the fan base with the sponsoring from Biarritz, if you have both teams, you look at the squad that you can have. You're talking about next year, they're going to need some depth. Bloody hell, they could use the 23 players from Bayonne because there's some really good players in there. So I'm just thinking now would be the time, especially if Biarritz are looking almost to relocate. Go to San Sebastian if you want. I don't care.
They're not relocating, mate. It's all political game. Look, it's been a clash of personalities with Aldiger and the Biarritz mayor.
Yeah.
But it's going to have to happen eventually. They're going to have to dip their hands in their pocket and invest in the stadium, the infrastructure of the club, because it is very dated. But look, when you talk about, I think it's really easy when you're from outside it or you haven't been in it to talk about fusing the two clubs. But when you live here, when you see the passion and the hatred between the two sides and the fact that they will not even go to a neighboring stadium, some older people here, Benji, struggle to walk in the streets of Bayonne if they're from Biarritz and vice versa. They absolutely hate each other that much. So you'd be ripping up again, you roll your eyes, but if you've lived here and you've lived it with these people, they are passionate human beings. And if you rip it up 100 years of history...
Not to the point where old people can't walk into the other town. Come on, what are you talking about?
I promise you, they don't. They refuse to go to Biarritz, and people from Biarritz
they
refuse to come into the town centre.
It's not like they're going to get mugged into town centres, you know?
No, but they get there like, oh, geez, I had to eat in town centre with my mates, but it was in Biarritz. Ugh. And they're like...
They feel dirty
funny
when they
about
come
it.
back.
Exactly. It's a grievance to have to go to the neighbouring town because they hate them that much. I think if you rip that up, and the fan base in Bayonne, is much more elderly population. So there's loads of demographics and dynamics that you have to take in consideration. Who is your fan base? Who do you want to bring in? Okay, if we create a Basque identity, which is extremely, extremely important, and at the forefront of most people's minds down here, are they going to come support? Is the big question. Would they come and put their bum in a seat and take a season ticket? And honestly, I'm not sure they would. You'd have to sort of go for the next generation of kids coming through, the new generation, and say, this is your new team, and you would lose a lot of supporters. So look, if you asked him and all, he'd say absolutely not. Even though he's extremely proud of being Basque, he'd be like, no way am I going to go and sit and watch a game in Bayonne Stadium. And so he just wouldn't do it. And it's crazy, but that's just the way people are down here. So financially, absolutely makes sense. Also, they've got a massive reservoir of players. If you look at the guys that are playing elsewhere in the top 14, you've got Echuria up in Clermont, you've got Olivon, you've got Etriard at Toulon. I think if they manage to retain with a slightly better budget and better infrastructure, better facilities in the two, and retain the players they produce, because they've got loads of real rugby villages around here that produce loads of kids, you'd have two phenomenal teams. But look, it's a hard task for anyone to do, but that's what Tayeb at Bayonne and that's what Aldige at Biarritz have got on their hands for the minute.
Let's have a look ahead to the semi-finals in Lille now then. And how big is it that Toulouse and La Rochelle have had a week off?
I think it's massive. They'll be delighted. More Toulouse than La Rochelle probably, but Toulouse are desperately in need of just a little bit more depth within their squad. I mean, they were struggling with the Arnold brothers and a couple of injuries. Old Jerome Kano, the old bones. You give him a week, it's a breath of fresh air, and to just concentrate on the last 80 minutes of his career, or at least the first 80 minutes, and then they'll see. So I think it's absolutely massive. They needed it, and probably La Rochelle used it to work even more, to probably polish up instead of getting refreshed. They probably worked on their strategy and just getting geared up for the rest. But those four sides are rock solid. Those four sides are particularly so you say homogene. They're almost at the same level. So it will be absolutely incredible rugby at the weekend. Super tight margins, as you can expect. With 5,000 fans, it will be good under pretty heavy, hot conditions. So it might influence a little bit their capacity to keep on going. But it will be the type of knockout rugby that we all love about top 14.
And how do you see them going, Johnny?
Oof. I think that the big positive goes to those two sides that have had the weekend off. It's the fact that they've had that week's rest. Like Benji mentioned, old bones, but big players, big time players getting that little bit of rest physically and a little bit more time to prep. I don't think that Racing, having played that game against Stade Francais, was any kind of prep really, because it was far too easy. It's almost like a team run in some aspects. So I don't think they can learn too much. I think for La Rochelle and for Toulouse, it's advantage to both of them. Having that week off, having that bit of freshness, especially having gone through all the Champions Cup rugby, that extra layer of fatigue, that might have given them a little bit of boost just to have those few days off to chill and to regenerate physically and then mentally go absolutely for it. So I think it's going to be leaning for me towards the two sides that had a rest, Toulouse and La Rochelle.
Repeat of the Champions Cup final, Benji?
Yeah. I see it happening that way. Again, that's all down to the lack of, how do you say that? Extraordinary event. An intercept try, a red card, something that you didn't sort of see coming. And I think if the logic is respected, Toulouse will sneak a win against Bordeaux and La Rochelle will do the same against Racing, even though both games will be very tight. And then we'll end up with a repeat of Champions Cup for the final, which will be very interesting to see if it's a different type of rugby that's played, if La Rochelle just can outperform on pure physicality rather than the high tempo European rugby, or they'll still stick to the same thing. And then you can rethink that whole red card of Levani Botia, would have, what if, well, we'll see. But yeah, I think if the logic is respected, if there's no intercept try, no crazy red card, but at the moment it seems to happen sort of every other week, I think those two teams should beat their opponents in the semi.
Before we go, Johnny, we spoke at length about the Basque derby, but you've got a bit of intel, haven't you, on Bayonne behind the scenes?
Not intel, just what's been reported in the press. So a lot of news coming out, and Yannick Brou, after the game finished, was very thankful. It wasn't like a this is the journey we're going on. Let's all stick in it together. It was more of a thanks of the work that's gone in over the past 3 years. So I think the players kind of got the impression that it might be curtains. And look, it's been rumored in the press as well that potentially Racing are looking for him to come up. So I don't know. Look, it's just incredibly tough for Bayonne generally. If you like, Yannick signed, I think, a 4 or 5 year contract to 2024, 2025. He's the head of everything and probably the most positive aspect of the performance side of Bayonne. So if you lose him now, coupled with the fact that you're also going to lose probably your best 10 to 15 players, it becomes incredibly hard. So it's not a nice rumor, but that's what's coming out in the press, and the players kind of got the impression that might be happening. So we'll have to sort of stay tuned over the next few days, few weeks, and see if he ends up jumping ship and heading somewhere else.
Thanks, Johnny. Thanks, Benji. A massive thanks to Steffon Armitage, who is on his way to Ibiza now. Not jealous at all. And a big thanks to all of you for listening as well. Make sure you hit subscribe. Leave us a nice review if you can as well. And we will be back with another episode next week. Au revoir, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers, fellas.